Hello, welcome to, maybe I should turn these fans off actually. If I unplug this. Now it's quieter. Alright, welcome to me. Who wants to look at my face? I'm building these. It's a piece of grid beam. It's a grid beam compatible board, I guess you might say. With lights in it and a little plug there, and everything in it is flush or beneath the surface, so that if you need to pack a bunch of these in a box or something, you can do that easily. Here's one that's farther along. Maybe you can see that. So what this is, it's this board, it's this 2x2 board. I cut the grid beam holes, I routed out the sides, I put LED strips in there and a power plug, and then I filled it with, I'm not sure if it's epoxy, it's this stuff that's labeled clear glaze. Now obviously I did not do the clear glaze too well. I added some, let's see if we can, I added some glitter to it, and the glitter makes it pretty, but the reason it's not clear is not just because of the glitter, it's also because I did a terrible job epoxying. And so when I do more epoxying, or glazing, or whatever you call it, this one I screwed up even, like, look how bad that is. Like, I just did a terrible job with this glaze. In the future, I'm going to try to do some tricks with the glaze, such as put some hot glue down in this hole here. That's the hole that the power wires come up through. They go in the side here, and then this sticking out. Not sticking out, but at the surface. Stick some hot glue in there so that when I pour the glaze in, it doesn't pour down into the bottom, which means that I'll be able to glaze just one side, and I'll be able to do it quickly, and then hopefully it won't get all foamy and opaque like it did in this one, and also not make as much of a mess on the board. And of course, if I'm only doing half of the board, then I'm not going to go through the glaze as quickly, so I'm making 3 of these so I can kind of pour it in, pour it in, pour it on, wait several hours, and then do the other side. On the other side, sometimes I'll have like a red light or something, so that's kind of like a dimmer colored light as opposed to the front side, which is bright white. Now this one over here, the one that I screwed up, the other thing about it is it's actually 3-sided instead of these, which are 2-sided. No, nothing super special about that, except I'm planning to drill holes. See, as you can see, there's no holes in it already. Unlike those first 2 that I drilled the holes right away. This one I'm planning to drill the holes through the epoxy and through the wood all at once at the not at the very end. After I sand this down to be square, but before I polish and finish it, I'm going to drill the holes, and hopefully that doesn't hit any of the wires on the way through. Now since there's 3 sides, you can actually control them independently, so I used an RGB connector there. So there's there's power plus 12 volts, and then the 3 pins are for the 3 sides. The other 3 pins are. And I could kind of demonstrate that for you here. Let's put that down. I don't have a proper connector, so I'm going to use these alligator clips. Put the red on the plus, and then, so you can see there's that side, that's the bottom, and then the other side, you can't see. You can see if I turn it around. This first one. Yeah. Derp, derp, derp. See, that's sort of cool. It'll look a lot better, I think, once I, yeah. You could hook up like an RGB Wi-Fi controller or something like that to control that if you wanted. Except instead of being RGB, it's red, red, and white on different sides. Let's see, what did I want to talk about? Oh, I really screwed up the job on this one with the glaze. One thing I did wrong was my glitter was not quite ready, so I had to go and rifle through the drawers in the kitchen in order to find a spoon, so that when this glaze was fully mixed and I was like, oh, I should add the glitter, it sat there for a minute or two And it starts the hardening process pretty quickly. So while I was trying to find a spoon to measure glitter in so that I would know I was getting exactly half a tablespoon so that it was like a reproducible thing, it was already hardening. The next problem was because it was like this. It was similar to how these are, where there's this hole that goes all the way through for the wires. But the glaze, when I poured the top in, filled the top with the glaze, which had glitter in it at this point, at first it would not go down the hole. I would start heating it with my heat gun here, because they recommend doing that to get rid of bubbles, and that actually made it become like more liquid. Because it popped the bubbles, it was no longer a foam, it was more fluid. I just kicked something over there. And at that point, it poured down the hole and filled up the bottom. So in this case, it was like, I think this was the top. So it wasn't filling the bottom, but it was filling the two sides with foam, basically, because it was not, yeah. And so then I had to add more glaze, and like every layer that I added, it got more and more foamy and like not nice and clear and fluid. So my plan here, as I mentioned earlier, is after I get all the wires in, I'm going to put some hot glue in there to plug that up, and then I'm going to wrap the top with this blue tape real good, but I'm going to try to avoid actually getting the glaze up past the top. I'm going to try to just fill this nice divot here. But because there's this notch in the edge, I'm going to need some tape, or maybe I'll use hot glue there too, I'm not sure. Now all that said, here's my jig that I use to route these out. It's just, you know, a router with, I think it's called a round nose bit in there. And then the jig that I built for it is, of course, made out of grid beam, because why not? You know, if I wanted to, I could use these little grid beam lamps as, you know, in this structure or something. That would be cool. I don't know if there's any point to putting those in the router, but, you know, it's the great thing about grid beam, you do whatever you want. And then this jig is just held together with clamps. The guide that's on top, it's just clamped onto the router holder. Yep. I think that's about it. I'll follow up later when I have hopefully made some better technique and made some better ones of these.